Hello, my dear sleepy listener. Tonight, you drift into a time where the jungle breathes secrets and temples have not yet risen. Before stone towers pierced the sky and water danced in carved moats, there was only dense green, sacred hills, and the soft murmur of rivers. You're standing beneath a jungle canopy, the humid air thick with the scent of moss and tamarind bark. The birds call gently in the trees above, and your bare feet press into the soft earth as you walk a winding trail to a clearing. In this place, deep in the highlands of ancient Cambodia, something is beginning. It is the year 802 CE, and a man named Jayavarman is about to declare himself the Chakravartin, the universal ruler. Before you drift away into peaceful slumber, please take a moment to like this video, leave a gentle comment about your favourite historical moment, and subscribe to keep these soothing tales coming your way. I'd love to know where you're listening from, what city, what time zone this great wide world we share. Now, dim the lights, settle in, and let these gentle whispers of history lull you into sleep. You hear the chanting before you see the ritual. Monks in ochre robes walk in slow circles around a lingam, an upright stone symbol of the god Shiva set on a hill called Mahendraparvata. The jungle here is sacred. It rises like the spine of the world, and the trees themselves seem to lean in, listening. Jayavarman II, clad in tiger-striped cloth, golden bands encircling his arms, is here to perform the Devaraja ceremony, the rite that will make him not just king, but god-king. No longer a petty prince of the fragmented Chenla lands, he becomes a divine unifier. You're close enough to see the flames flicker in his ceremonial bowl, fed with jasmine, sandalwood, and slivers of gold leaf. The air is thick with incense. This moment, this declaration, is like planting a banner in time itself. The Khmer Empire begins here, not in battle or conquest, but in a prayer whispered to the mountain and echoed by the gods. Jayavarman's voice is calm but resonant as he speaks of sovereignty over the land and the souls who dwell in it. He invokes the ancient Indian concepts brought to Southeast Asia by earlier merchants and monks of cosmic order, divine kingship, and the union of heaven and earth through the monarch. You sit quietly as the sun begins to set through the mist, washing the mountainside in amber and lilac. Yet, for all its grandeur, this moment is also curious in its contradictions. Historians still question whether Jayavarman's declaration was truly understood as empire building. Some argue that later chroniclers painted his reign with the brush of greatness to legitimize their own dynasties. After all, the Devaraja cult, the idea of the king as God incarnate, was perhaps more a symbol of aspiration than immediate power. Still, the ritual takes place, offerings are made, and from this point on, the name Khmer will echo across centuries, through temples, travellers, and carved stone. You feel a sense of stillness, a long inhale before a dynasty's breath, as the flickering torches cast long shadows across the ancient hill. As night falls, you return down the slope with the procession. The cicadas are louder now, and the jungle seems alive with quiet approval. No armies march yet, and no temples have yet risen, but a kingdom has been born in silence and smoke. You awaken at dawn to the hush of mist curling around the peaks of Phnom Kulen. The air is cool, heavy with dew, and the leaves glisten as if the forest has wept through the night. Around you, the dense Cambodian jungle seems almost to hold its breath. You walk a moss-covered path toward a sacred rise, Mount Mahendraparvata, the spiritual heart of the early Khmer kings. It is not a towering mountain by Himalayan standards, but it looms large in the sacred geography of the empire. It is said that from this place, the divine pulse of the kingdom radiates outward, and now, as you reach the summit, you find a humble stone shrine perched in the morning light, its edges softened by age and creeping vines. A carved lingam stands at the centre, a stone pillar, simple yet imbued with cosmic importance. You kneel beside a priest who is brushing leaves from the carved platform. He smiles at you and points to an inscription partially buried beneath soil and vine. You gently wipe away the dirt to find a Sanskrit prayer carved in curving lines. It speaks of Shiva, of cosmic mountains, and of Jayavarman's divine claim. This is no ordinary mountain. It is the axis mundi, the cosmic centre where earth and heaven meet. Here, Jayavarman II established not just a kingdom, but an idea that the monarch is the earthly vessel of divinity, that to govern is to align with the sacred. The shrine is modest today, but one day it will be part of a great ritual complex, a symbol of the Khmer world's spiritual scaffolding. As you stand and gaze over the forest stretching endlessly below, a light breeze carries the scent of citronella and wood smoke. You close your eyes, letting the soft hum of insects and rustling leaves lull you deeper into the mood of the land. Nearby, artisans are already beginning to carve more stone. Their tools are rudimentary, hammer and chisel, but their hands are practiced. They carve not just for beauty, but for eternity. Khmer stonework often contains no mortar, no cement. The blocks will interlock like puzzles, meant to last longer than any king or kingdom. One elder points to a boulder with his elbow and says something that makes the others laugh softly. You don't understand the words, but you gather that a monkey has stolen a tool again. Mischief. Even here. A small, mischievous macaque scampers by, bold as royalty. It perches on the unfinished lingam, gazing down as if it too claims the title of God-King. Still, not everything about Mahendraparvata is fully known. Archaeologists continue to uncover hidden temples and water systems buried beneath the jungle canopy. Satellite imaging has revealed ancient gridded roads and platforms, evidence of a much larger city than anyone suspected. Was this once the capital before Angkor? Some believe so. Others wonder if the terrain was too difficult, too wild. The debate remains gently unresolved. You stroll further through the forest, where the roots of fig trees wrap tightly around stone. The air here feels different, as if it remembers. You pass what might have been a throne, carved into rock and now softened by time. You sit there a moment, just for a breath, just to listen. The forest is never silent. It sings in layers, buzzing cicadas, calling birds, the occasional whisper of wind through bamboo. But beneath it all, there is a deeper tone. The hum of stone, perhaps, or the quiet exhale of the past. You lean into it. Far below the slopes, peasants begin their daily routines. Women in indigo skirts tend to rice paddies flooded by the monsoon. Children splash in brown creeks, and the scent of boiling lemongrass drifts up with the wind. All of this, the shrine, the jungle, the people, is now part of something larger. The Khmer Empire has begun, not with swords or banners, but with belief, with mountains, with stone and silence. And so you stay a while longer, sitting beside the lingam on this sacred rise. The sunlight grows warmer, the mist thins, and the mountain, old as time, watches quietly as a civilization slowly begins to take form. You awaken to the gentle murmur of moving water all around you. The land lies flat and green, breathing beneath a curtain of morning haze. You find yourself standing beside a wide embankment, gazing out across a vast man-made reservoir above. Its surface is mirror still, reflecting the soft pastels of dawn. The Khmer landscape, though lush and fertile, is no easy friend. The seasonal rhythm of rain and drought makes rice cultivation both a gift and a gamble. But here, in this moment, you begin to understand the genius of Khmer hydraulic engineering. These reservoirs, built centuries before such concepts had names, catch and hold the monsoon rains, then redistribute them when the skies go dry. You walk along the edge of the beret, your steps soft on the earthen dike. On one side, the water stretches like a tranquil sea. On the other, an intricate web of canals crisscrosses the fields, feeding every terrace, every paddy, every parched stretch of soil. In the near distance, barefoot farmers wade knee-deep through emerald rice fields. The stalks are young and green, dancing lightly in the breeze. Water buffalo trudge slowly beside them, wide-eyed and gentle, their flanks slick with the morning mist. Children laugh in the distance, chasing frogs between the muddy rows. You pause by a spillway, a stone channel cut with astonishing precision. The water flows through it in a silent, steady stream. There are no pumps, no modern controls, only gravity, slope, and centuries of trial and wisdom. You find yourself marvelling not at temples or kings, but at the ability to tame the breath of the monsoon and make it flow gently across a kingdom. This system, this network of berries, canals and ponds becomes the lifeblood of the Khmer Empire. It supports cities, temples and armies. It feeds millions. Without it, Angkor would remain a jungle backwater. With it, it becomes one of the largest and most advanced cities in the pre-industrial world. And yet, even here, mystery lingers. Scholars still debate how centralized the water system truly was. Did a single royal office coordinate the flow, or was it a patchwork of local projects, harmonized more by custom than command? No one knows for certain. The jungle has hidden many blueprints. As you continue walking, you encounter an elderly man seated by the water's edge. His face is weathered like the stone of nearby temples. He offers you a piece of sticky rice wrapped in banana leaf and points to the sky with a knowing smile. "The gods," he says softly, "send the water, but the kings must hold it." His fingers trace an invisible line in the air, a motion that mimics the canals below. You understand what he means. Water is more than life here. It is order, it is power, it is worship. Nearby, monks in saffron robes sweep the steps of a stone reservoir shrine. They move slowly, patiently, their motions as smooth as the canal's current. You watch them wash their hands in a pool filled with lotus blossoms, their reflections gently disturbed by ripples. At the far end of the bay, a narrow boat glides silently across the water. A fisherman stands at the bow, his net poised in mid-air. With a sudden flick, it spins outward like a silver fan, landing softly with barely a splash. And then, from deep in the jungle, a sound rises, the faint ring of a temple bell. You follow the sound, weaving your way along a shaded canal path. Vines hang low over the water. Blue kingfishers dart between the branches. Everything feels balanced, designed, as if the entire landscape is an offering bowl, carefully arranged for the gods. When you arrive at the temple, you find a basin carved directly into the stone floor. It is filled with clear water, reflecting a statue of Vishnu that looms above it. His many arms hold objects of divine purpose, conch, discus, mace, and his serene expression watches you, unreadable and calm. You sit quietly at the basin's edge, a dragonfly hovers near your hand, and in the stillness you think about the millions of droplets that once fell from storm-darkened skies and were caught, one by this empire's will. You awaken beneath a pink and orange sky, the soft light of early morning stretching long shadows across the ground. This time, you find yourself near a quiet clearing where the jungle is pulled back just enough to reveal a marvel. At first, it seems like a mirage towers of stone rising out of the earth, shaped not by time but by intention. The temple stands there, poised and patient, like a lotus rising from mud. This is no ordinary shrine. This is the early flowering of Khmer sacred architecture. You approach slowly, your bare feet brushing against crushed petals and sandy soil. Before you is a temple from the era of King Jayavarman II, one of the first to embrace a new form of building stone, not brick and sandstone at that. The shift is subtle at first glance, but you can feel it. This temple is meant to endure. It is not a monument for one lifetime, but for many. The central tower is square, rising like a mountain Meru, the sacred peak of Hindu cosmology. Around it, smaller towers seem to orbit, like celestial bodies. The walls are warm with the sunrise, their carvings still crisp gods and demons, warriors and elephants, dancers with curling fingers, and not just gods. You see farmers too, singers, even a cat curled beneath the noblewoman's feet. These temples are stories in stone. You duck beneath the lintel of the eastern gate, where a guardian figure frowns from above. The passage is narrow, but once inside, the air is cool and scented with old incense. Shafts of light cut through stone windows, catching dust motes that shimmer like starlight. You step softly through the corridor, your breath slow, your heart strangely still. Outside, temple workers are just beginning their day. They carry baskets of sand, chisel rough blocks, polish statues. One man wipes sweat from his brow with a strip of linen and hums a tune older than the empire itself. A woman gently brushes debris from a carving of Vishnu riding Garuda. They do not work for praise. Their labour is worship. Over time, these temples multiply like blooms in a garden. Roluos, Preako, Bakong, each one more intricate, more confident, more certain of the empire's path. Temples become not just centres of worship, but centres of life hubs of trade, learning, ritual, and agriculture. The lands around them are cultivated, canals extended, monks housed, festivals hosted. A nearby stone stele tells of land donations to the temple villages assigned to maintain it, produced to supply its monks, and dancers to perform in its courtyards. This isn't just a religious gesture, it's statecraft. A temple is power made visible, and in the Khmer world, power is best dressed in stone and song. Yet even here, there is gentle disagreement. Some scholars question how centralized these temples really were. Were they royal endeavours, or local ones with royal approval? Were they acts of faith, or political declarations carved in sandstone? The answer, perhaps, lies in the space between altar and king. You walk now to the temple's western gate, where the sun has risen higher and the forest hums louder. Here, a young acolyte offers you a flower, a frangipani, pale and sweet. He places it in a tiny niche beside a statue, whispering something in Pali under his breath. You do not interrupt, you only listen. Beyond the temple, a field stretches out, dotted with sugar palms and buffalo tracks. A group of children are playing near a sacred pond. They splash and chase each other with squeals of delight, their laughter echoing through the groves. One child holds a carved amulet, perhaps given to him by a monk, perhaps found in the dust. He clutches it with reverence, as if he holds the empire's secret in his palm. As you return to the temple's inner courtyard, you glance once more at the lotus-shaped towers. They seem to defy gravity, not because they are tall, but because they feel as though they grew from the very earth beneath them. They do not dominate the landscape. They harmonize with it. You sit beneath a Bodhi tree, its heart-shaped leaves rustling softly overhead, and as you close your eyes, you realize in this place the boundary between the spiritual and the material is not a wall, but a doorway. You awaken to the scent of sandalwood and marigold, drifting softly on the breeze. Around you, the gentle hum of morning routine echoes from stone corridors. This is the royal court of Angkor, elegant, ceremonial, and humming with quiet purpose. You're inside a palace complex, its pavilions open to the air, shaded by carved eaves and draped in pale silk. Courtiers glide past in robes of deep crimson and moss green, their bare feet whispering against tiled stone. Somewhere nearby, a gong sounds not sharp, but mellow, as if the morning itself is bowing. You rise and walk slowly toward the central courtyard where a performance is just beginning. The dancers are already moving, their fingertips curling like tendrils of smoke. These are apsaras, celestial beings depicted in countless Khmer carvings. But here they are flesh and breath, adorned in gold leaf, layered skirts, and towering headdresses that shimmer with tiny bells. They do not leap or spin wildly. Instead, their movement is impossibly slow, deliberate, and precise. Each gesture holds meaning: the blooming of a flower, the sorrow of rain, the joy of a rising sun. You watch, entranced, as they move in harmony to a gentle rhythm played on bronze gongs and wooden xylophones, the Renits singing like water poured from a bowl. This is court life, quiet elegance, the kind that whispers rather than announces. At the far edge of the pavilion, the king sits cross-legged on a raised platform. Today it is Jayavarman II, a pious ruler with a taste for architecture and ceremony. He watches the dancers with serene detachment, sipping from a goblet made of carved coconut and gold. Courtiers nearby murmur softly about marriage alliances, temple dedications, and irrigation projects. One nobleman adjusts a golden belt and frowns over a silk map. Another chuckles softly, remembering a particularly mischievous monkey that once snuck into the kitchens and stole a basket of mangoes. Even here, amid robes and ritual, small human moments break through. A scribe near the royal dais is bent over a palm leaf manuscript, inscribing new edicts with a fine stylus dipped in black ink. The letters are looped and delicate. Khmer script, when written with care, looks almost like dancing itself. You wander through the audience hall, where offerings are laid out on woven mats, rice cakes, bananas, glazed sweets, and coconuts with the tops neatly sliced. A priest quietly blesses each platter before it is presented. The boundaries between religious ritual and royal protocol are thin here, often indistinguishable. But what strikes you most is not the wealth or the grandeur, it is the quiet, the slow pacing of it all. This court does not rush. The Khmer believe that sacred time moves differently, that rituals should be unhurried. The world outside might race toward conquest or rebellion, but here within the palace walls, time is softened, folded like silk. Still, not everything is certain. Scholars debate whether these courts were as serene as the inscription suggests. Was this peaceful choreography a facade for political tension? Were the dancers voluntary performers or temple-bound women assigned to the court? The records, poetic and reverent, rarely mention dissent. But in every kingdom, even the quiet ones, the full truth is never entirely visible. Later, you step into the women's quarters, where conversation flows more freely. Nobles and their attendants sit in circles, weaving flower garlands and sharing news from the provinces. One young woman tells a tale of a village where frogs leapt from the rice fields at the sound of bells, as if trained. Another hums an old lullaby while tying a silk sash around her waist. There is warmth here, domestic and sincere. The empire may be built on stone, but its breath lives in these soft, passing moments. You are offered a dish of sticky rice sweetened with palm sugar and wrapped in banana leaf. It is warm in your hand, and the sweetness clings to your tongue like memory. Beyond the courtyard, a soft rain begins to fall. The dancers step away, their golden ornaments catching raindrops like scattered stars. The king retires behind a curtain of reed beads, and the musicians let their last note drift into silence. You sit for a moment, listening to the rain on tile, the rustle of silk, the distant gong now quiet. The palace breathes, and so do you. Here, amid the low murmur of court life, you find not just history, but humanity measured in slow steps, shared meals, and stories whispered over jasmine tea. You awaken beside a wide stone causeway, worn smooth by centuries of passing feet, wheels, and hooves. In the distance, the gates of Angkor Thom rise like the jaws of a sleeping giant, carved with faces so enormous and serene that they seem to watch the clouds. It is midday, and the great city of Angkor is alive. The air hums with activity. You step forward, and the stones beneath you echo with movement. Ox carts creak, merchants shout gently, and elephants tread with the authority of empires. You have entered the heart of the Khmer world. Angkor Thom is no mere city. It is an organism, a sacred machine, a living capital of faith, administration, and spectacle. Passing beneath the towering gate, you walk between statues of gods and demons churning the cosmic ocean, each figure straining, tugging a serpent carved in stone. This myth, the churning of the Sea of Milk, isn't just decoration. It's the Khmer worldview made visible, harmony from struggle, eternity through effort. Inside the city, the layout is so precise it feels divine. Roads stretch straight as sunbeams. Canals mirror them. On either side, tall homes of wooden planks rise on stilts, nestled among banana trees and lemongrass. You smell roasting rice, fish paste, and the faint perfume of burning incense from unseen courtyards. At the centre stands the Bayon, its smiling faces gazing out in every direction. But more on that later. For now, you focus on the people. You stroll past scribes hunched over palm leaf manuscripts, their ink-stained fingers steady despite the noise around them. One boy recites verses aloud in Sanskrit, his voice rhythmic and proud. Nearby, a troupe of entertainers balances on tightrope stretched between palm trees. the crowd cheering with sleepy excitement. Merchants beckon from shaded stalls. One offers silk dyed with indigo and crushed insects deep purple, nearly black. Another sells beetle nuts wrapped in leaf, their pungent scent sharp in your nose. Potters display their wares coiled jars, incense burners, and terracotta figurines of monkeys playing flutes. Even in commerce, joy lives. You notice a foreign traveller, perhaps from Champa or China, sitting cross-legged beside a stall, fanning himself with a palm frond. He speaks with a Khmer trader in broken phrases, bartering over a lacquered box. You're reminded that Angkor is not just Khmer, it is cosmopolitan. Embassies come and go, scripts from India, goods from the South China Sea, and ideas from the Buddhist monasteries of Lanka all pass through here. And yet, this isn't a modern metropolis. It lacks the hustle. Angkor breathes slower. A large family washes clothes by a canal, beating the fabric rhythmically against flat stones. In the shade of a breadfruit tree, old men play board games on a mat, chuckling between moves. One sneezes loudly and blames the ghosts of the past. They all laugh. You pause at the edge of the royal square, where the king's audience hall sits raised on a stone platform. Officials gather beneath parasols, waiting for a summons. A minor prince, dressed in a cotton tunic with delicate embroidery, passes by on a white horse. His attendants fan him lazily, more for ceremony than relief. Here, the Khmer genius for hydraulic engineering reveals itself again. Great canals crisscross the city, channeling water toward baths, reservoirs, and sacred pools. You stop at one such basin asrar where lotus flowers bob gently. A young girl dips her toes in, giggling. A priest nearby murmurs prayers to the water spirits, casting a handful of rice into the surface. And still, questions linger. Scholars debate just how many people lived in Angkor at its peak. Some say hundreds of thousands. Others whisper of 1 million or more. With no city walls and houses built mostly of perishable wood, evidence vanishes into the forest. What remains are the bones of stone temples, gates, roads, and dreams. As the afternoon deepens, you rest in the shade of a banyan tree. The city continues to pulse softly around you. The call of a heron echoes from the moats. Somewhere, a flute plays. The people of Angkor go on with their lives, laughing, working, praying, never quite aware that they are part of something astonishing. And you, quiet observer, drift through it all like a passing cloud. No one stops you. You're just another presence among many, a breeze, a breath, a whisper in the stone. You awaken to the soft clang of chisels tapping stone, a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. The jungle has thinned, and you stand at the edge of a vast construction site. Dust rises in golden motes as workers haul sandstone blocks into place. You're witnessing the birth of a wonder Angkor Wat. The morning sun is just beginning to catch the highest towers, their lotus bud spires still surrounded by scaffolding. This is the reign of Jayavarman II, and the air feels thick with ambition. His vision is monumental, a temple complex that mirrors the universe itself, built not only to honour Vishnu but to reflect cosmic order in earthly form. Suryavarman stands on a raised platform, his gaze stern but serene. He's clad in gold-embroidered cloth, shaded by a parasol held aloft by a silent attendant. Nearby, architects unfurl palm leaf blueprints while priests offer prayers over garlands and crushed petals. You follow a group of artisans as they climb a narrow ramp to the central enclosure. Their bodies glisten with sweat. their hands wrapped in cloth to grip their tools. They speak softly to one another, correcting angles, lifting stones into place with ropes and pulleys. One older carver pauses to sharpen his chisel on a flat stone, then gently resumes etching swirling lines into a wall. A dancer, a god, a battle scene frozen in delicate relief. Every detail matters. The walls of Angkor Wat are not just decoration, they are scripture. You trace your fingers along a bas-relief depicting the churning of the Sea of Milk, where gods and demons pull a naga serpent around Mount Mandara to extract the nectar of immortality. The figures are expressive, mid-motion, eternal. The temple rises in perfect symmetry. Its central tower represents Mount Meru, the sacred mountain at the centre of the universe. The 5 towers form a quincunx, a sacred diagram. The moat surrounding the temple is vast, representing the cosmic ocean. As you gaze across its still waters, the entire complex reflects back at you, inverted but whole. A nearby scribe murmurs that this is no ordinary shrine. It is the king's tomb, though that will come later. Jayavarman is building both a temple and his eternal home. In this way, he hopes to be reborn as a deity, a Vishnu king. You wonder whether he imagines future pilgrims walking these halls centuries after his bones have turned to dust. But not all is serene. Debate still lingers among scholars about the true nature of Angkor Wat. Was it always dedicated to Vishnu? Was it originally a funerary complex? Some even suggest it was a celestial observatory, aligned to solstices and lunar cycles. The temple's westward orientation, so rare among Khmer shrines, remains a riddle. For now, though, the workers press on. One boy, no older than 10, balances a basket of sandstone chips on his head, humming a tune as he walks. A monkey perches on a nearby ledge, watching him with lazy curiosity. You step into the gallery of 1,000 Buddhas, though only a few statues remain. Many were added later, during transitions from Hinduism to Mahayana Buddhism, and then to Theravada. The Khmer Empire shifts not only in kingship and architecture, but in belief. Faith flows here like the canals redirected, but always present. Outside, the sun has risen higher, illuminating the temple's great staircases. Pilgrims have begun to arrive barefoot, heads bowed. Some bring offerings of rice and lotus. Others leave tiny clay elephants or beads. They walk slowly, their feet brushing worn carvings made by hands long gone. You sit at the edge of the outer enclosure, where the breeze moves softly through palm trees. A girl in a yellow scarf sits beside you, swinging her legs and eating jackfruit from a leaf. She offers you a piece. It's sweet and sticky. You accept it with a nod. Around you, the sounds of construction blend with prayer and bird call. The vision of Jayavarman II, so vast, so sacred, is taking form one stone at a time. And even as hammers ring and ropes creak, there is a hush beneath it all, a reverence, as if the jungle itself is pausing to listen. You awaken inside the cooling hush of stone. The air is thick with silence, the kind that settles between walls built to outlast memory. Around you, temple corridors stretch like a sacred maze, hallways without haste, corners that fold like secrets. You are within one of Angkor's countless sanctuaries, and the world has dimmed to candlelight and carved devotion. You walk barefoot over smooth, time-worn flagstones. The walls on either side are covered in reliefs so intricate they seem almost alive, divine battles, heavenly dancers, coils of serpents, and the calm faces of gods staring back from the darkness. You run your fingers along the cold grooves. tracing a line of script that wraps the story of a king's offering to the gods. This temple is smaller than Angkor Wat, more hidden, more intimate. Perhaps it is Banteay Srey, where the carvings are so delicate they resemble lace, or one of the many cloistered sanctuaries that nestle in Angkor's periphery, embraced by vines and silence. In this place there are no crowds, no processions, only whispers and incense. A monk passes quietly in the shadows, robes rustling like silk. He doesn't startle when he sees you, only nods. He carries a candle in a clay bowl and places it gently before a statue of Vishnu. You sit near him, cross-legged, listening to his chant low, steady, like the breath of a sleeping god. He speaks Pali or Sanskrit, it's hard to tell, and it doesn't matter. The sound itself carries the meaning. As your eyes adjust to the gloom, you notice the floor slants slightly, funneling rainwater toward a hidden drain. The architecture is not just beautiful, it is clever. These buildings breathe, sweat, and whisper the seasons. When the rains come, the roofs funnel the water into sacred pools. When the sun bakes the earth, the walls remain cool, shaded by centuries. You follow a staircase that winds upward, narrow and steep. It feels secret, as though only the devout or the curious find it. At the top, you step out onto a small terrace. The jungle unfolds below like an endless carpet of green. Somewhere in the distance, birds call through the treetops, and far-off chanting drifts from another temple, its melody softened by the wind. You rest your hands on the ledge, feeling the stone warm beneath your palms. Below, a procession of pilgrims winds its way through the trees, white cloths trailing like the tails of comets. They carry offerings, bundles of rice, folded lotus leaves, garlands of frangipani. One child carries a clay figurine with such reverence it seems to weigh 1,000 dreams. This place, like so many others in Angkor, is more than a monument. It is a rhythm, a living breath in stone and shadow. Monks live here still, tending to crumbling lintels and lost shrines. They sweep, pray, repair. A lifetime might pass in service to a single corner of a single temple, and it would not be wasted. And yet, even here, the past offers puzzles. Some scholars wonder whether these sanctuaries were built first as tombs, then claimed by monks. Others debate the meaning of particular carvings. Are they scenes of mythology, or coded messages from king to god? A stone can say many things, depending on who listens. You descend into an inner courtyard, where the light filters in through broken tiles and missing stones. Nature reclaims gently. A vine creeps through a crack. A tree root snakes across the floor, as if bowing to the altar. You kneel and touch the ground where worship once rose like smoke. There's a quiet companionship here. The temple holds your presence without demanding it. It doesn't need to be admired, only remembered. You are a guest, not just in this place, but in this time. The stone does not hurry. It has no fear of being forgotten. As evening falls, oil lamps are lit. The glow flickers along bas-reliefs, casting shadows that make dancers twirl and gods nod in slow procession. A monk hands you a pinch of crushed sandalwood and motions for you to scatter it at the foot of a statue. You do so, watching it drift like soft dust to the floor. You don't speak. No one does. Here, silence is more eloquent than prayer. You awaken at the edge of a sacred moat. The water is still, black as obsidian, reflecting the dark green canopy above. Morning has not yet broken. A deep blue twilight hangs in the sky, and the world feels hushed, suspended between the dreams of night and the rituals of day. Across the moat, a temple sleeps beneath a crown of fig trees and strangler vines. You take a step forward, and the wooden bridge creaks beneath your feet. Mist coils along the surface of the water like a living thing. The air smells of damp earth, old stone, and something faintly sweet, perhaps the night blossoms of the Kisa trees. You have wandered into a temple not yet claimed by the day, and not yet surrendered to ruin, a liminal place. In this twilight, you begin to notice how the jungle watches. You do not feel alone. The vines seem to lean toward the temples, curling lovingly around pillars. The trees reach down with fingers of root, pulling at carvings like a child tugging at a sleeve. This is Taprom, or perhaps Beng Miala, one of those temples left partly to the forest, where preservation bows to awe. Massive silk cotton trees grow directly from the stone. Their roots pour over balustrades and slip between doorways, forming arches of nature over ancient paths. In some places, the roots are so tightly wrapped around the stone that you cannot tell where temple ends and tree begins. It is not decay, it is devotion in reverse. A breeze rustles the canopy above, and a troop of macaques leaps across the roofline. One pauses on a ledge and meets your gaze, curious but unafraid. In this moment, you feel like you are being studied just as much as you're observing. Inside the temple, moss grows thick on the floors and bats flutter in the rafters. You step carefully, your footfalls echoing against collapsed galleries. Here and there, a carving peeks out from behind a veil of vines, a Devata with a serene smile. A war elephant mid-charge, a sacred script eroding into abstraction. You duck beneath a fallen lintel and emerge into a hidden courtyard, where a single statue still stands upright. A bodhisattva with hands raised in both blessing and mystery. A garland of dried flowers hangs around its neck, recently placed. Someone else has been here. Perhaps a pilgrim, perhaps a monk, perhaps just a wandering villager drawn to the quiet holiness of the place. There is a beauty here, not of perfection, but of surrender. The jungle does not desecrate the temple, it completes it. The gods, it seems, are not offended by roots, yet even this harmonious decay prompts debate. Were temples like Taprom always so wild, or were they carefully maintained for centuries before being forgotten? Some historians argue that what we see now is not the past's truth, but the modern viewer's fantasy of ruin. The jungle's embrace is as much romantic lens as historical fact. Still, your experience is real. You sit on a stone bench, half sunken into earth, and close your eyes. The temple breathes, not as a city does, with motion and sound, but as the forest does, in cycles, in pulses, in stillness. From the depths of the sanctuary, a faint sound reaches you. A voice, low and rhythmic. A chant, echoing through hollow halls. You follow it, stepping carefully over fallen blocks and under dangling roots. At last, you reach the inner sanctum, where a single monk sits in meditation, back straight, eyes closed. He does not acknowledge you, and you do not disturb him. You sit quietly nearby. His chant continues unhurried, unbroken. The notes seem to swirl through the air like incense, rising up through the cracks in the ceiling to the trees above. You notice a tiny sprout growing from a crack in the floor, just a sliver of green. Life, ever gentle, ever insistent. The sky lightens. Morning begins to arrive. Birds call. The mist thins, the jungle stretches, and yet the temple remains unchanged, patient in its entanglement. The vines stay wrapped around stone. The stone stays wrapped around memory. You rise slowly and step back toward the entrance. Behind you, the temple fades into shadow again, the monk's voice a last echo. The forest closes in, not as conqueror, but as caretaker. You awaken to the soft crunch of wheels over gravel and the rhythm of padded hooves. A procession moves slowly along an ancient road, worn but still straight cut through jungle and lowland, stretching beyond the visible horizon. This is no simple trail. This is one of the great highways of the Khmer Empire. The road is wide, built of laterite blocks and shaded by trees planted long ago to guide and cool travellers. You walk beside the caravan now, and it feels almost dreamlike oxen pulling carts filled with rice and pottery, silk-wrapped bundles of spices and cages with chirping birds. Tall guards stride alongside barefoot monks, both patient in the heat. Bells jingle gently with each step. To your left, a royal envoy sits astride an elephant, his robes billowing slightly in the breeze. His parasol bearer walks beside him, shielding him from the sun with quiet devotion. The envoy's destination the kingdom of Champa to the east, bearing gifts and letters bound in palm leaf and gold thread. Diplomacy, in this empire, is as important as temples. The Khmer roads connect not just cities and shrines, but people and ideas, traders, pilgrims, monks, artisans, all travel these routes. Some roads lead south toward coastal ports where Chinese junks anchor with porcelain and ink. Others wind westward toward the Mon and Thai kingdoms, where Khmer influence mingles with local traditions like dye in water. You pass a dharmasala, a stone rest house set at regular intervals along the highway. Inside, travellers sip from clay cups, their packs leaning against stone walls. An old woman mends a torn bag with careful stitches. A young boy offers lotus seeds to anyone passing by. You pause and rest among them, sharing shade and stillness. The Khmer built more than temples. They built a network of connection, from Angkor to the sea, from mountain to delta. Their world was woven together by routes that carried not only goods, but culture. You hear snippets of conversation in many tongues: Old Khmer, Sanskrit, Chinese, Chamic. One merchant jokes that he speaks enough to trade, but not enough to argue. And yet, there is something quieter riding these roads religion. Buddhism and Hinduism travel hand in hand, carried by monks in ochre robes and Brahmins in white. Shrines dot the roadside. You stop at one, a simple stone platform with a lotus carved in its centre. A traveller kneels to light incense, whispering prayers to Vishnu and Avalokiteshvara in the same breath. Scholars still debate how structured this road system truly was. Some claim it was meticulously planned by royal decree, with mapped distances and designated lodgings. Others believe much of it grew organically, shaped by the needs of a local communities rather than imperial command. Perhaps, like so much of Khmer life, it was a blend of vision and adaptation. As the sun climbs higher, you pass through a wooded stretch where butterflies flit in the dappled light. The road narrows briefly, curving beside a canal. Fish dart beneath the surface, disturbed by the shadows of passing elephants. A child walks beside you, singing a simple tune about monkeys and mangoes. She's barefoot, carrying a bundle of sugar cane over her shoulder. You ask where she's headed. To see the temple, she says with a smile. And maybe to see the gods, you smile back. She's not wrong. Further ahead, The road crosses a stone bridge. The balustrade is carved with Naga's multi-headed serpents twisting in majestic lines. You pause at its crest, gazing out across a flooded field glinting like hammered silver. A flock of birds rises suddenly, their wings catching the light like shards of silk. You continue walking, the road warm beneath your feet, the empire humming gently around you. It isn't a roar, it never is. The Khmer world moves like its rivers slow, wide, and deeply connected. By nightfall, the caravan reaches a small village near a sacred site. Lanterns flicker to life, meals are shared, songs are sung softly under trees. You lie beneath the stars on a mat of woven reed, listening to crickets and the creak of cartwheels settling into rest. The road still stretches ahead. Tomorrow it may lead to temples or towers, to foreign courts or quiet shrines. But tonight it brings only peace, the gentle hush of a world connected not by conquest, but by steps, by stories, and by the stillness between them. You awaken to the sound of hooves striking stone and the sharp crack of a war elephant's call echoing through the valley. The air smells of trampled grass and ash, but also of morning cool, fragrant, touched with the promise of rebuilding. You are no longer in the time of peace. You're in the era of Jayavarman II, the warrior who returned to a wounded Angkor and vowed to heal it. The city has been ravaged. The Cham seafaring rivals from the east have invaded and burned parts of Angkor. For a time, the empire trembled, but Jayavarman returns not only as a general, but as a saviour, and here, at the gates of the broken city, you see him ride in atop a grey elephant draped in embroidered cloth. His face is calm but determined, marked by both sorrow and strength. He wears simple robes, not the rich silks of kings, but the sombre colours of a man who has seen too much. The crowd gathers in silence. No trumpet sounds, no drums beat, and yet the atmosphere is charged with reverence. A king has returned, not with jewels, but with purpose. You follow the new monarch through the streets. Rubble is being cleared, stones restacked. Women sweep ash from temple steps while monks chant slowly in ruined shrines. But amid the soot and broken carvings, something remarkable is taking root. Compassion. Jayavarman VII is different from his predecessors. He builds not only temples, but hospitals. He commissions roads and rest houses, not just for royalty, but for pilgrims and peasants alike. Everywhere he goes, his courtiers take notes, plans for new reservoirs, new schools, new cities. He speaks softly, but his voice carries. He calls for the restoration of the people's spirit, not just the empire's walls. You pass a newly rising monastery, its walls still wrapped in scaffolding. At the entrance, a sculptor is carving a Buddha's face gentle, wide-eyed, and unmistakably reminiscent of Jayavarman himself. The line between king and bodhisattva blurs. The monarch is not just ruler, but healer. You pause in front of one of the hospitals he orders built, one of over 100, scattered across the realm. Inside, herbalists tend to the sick with poultices and palm leaf remedies. Patients lie on bamboo mats, shaded from the sun by awnings made of woven reeds. A young girl has a fever. Her mother offers her cooled rice water while a novice monk fans her gently. Medicine here is prayerful, deliberate, and free to all. Jayavarman's rule transforms Angkor. He commissions the Bayon the temple at the very heart of Angkor. Tomit's towers crowned with faces bearing mysterious smiles. Some believe they are bodhisattvas. Others claim they are Jayavarman himself, watching over the realm from every direction. You climb the Bayon steps. The carvings here are different, less divine, more human. Scenes of everyday life unfold on the gallery walls, fishermen casting nets, market stalls bustling, even roosters fighting. The gods have not been abandoned, but the people have been embraced. You smile at the image of a man making rice cakes, his wife looking unimpressed beside him. Even stone has a sense of humour. But as with all great kings, debates swirl gently behind the certainty. Some historians wonder whether Jayavarman's compassion was personal or politically strategic. Did his Buddhist devotion inspire his reforms? Or did he sense that the kingdom needed a softer kind of strength after war? Was he truly humble or simply brilliant? Perhaps both, perhaps neither. Outside, the city grows, refugees return, new temples rise, roads stretch farther than before. Children chase each other through rebuilt courtyards, their laughter echoing from newly carved walls. You pass one such child mud-streaked, carrying a toy elephant carved from wood. He grins and offers it to you, then changes his mind and gallops off with a squeal. In a grove of tamarind trees, Jayavarman sits alone, writing, not issuing commands, not posing for sculpture, but writing. His stylus moves slowly over palm leaf, a royal edict, a prayer, a poem you'll never know. But you leave him there, bathed in the golden hush of late afternoon, surrounded by a city that breathes again. He is not a conqueror in this moment. He is a gardener, tending not just to soil and stone, but to the wounds of a civilization, coaxing beauty where ruin once bloomed. You awaken beneath the rustle of Bodhi leaves and the rhythmic thud of a pestle crushing herbs. The scent of turmeric, tamarind, and camphor floats in the air, mingling with faint sandalwood smoke. You are in a Khmer healing centre, one of the many sanctuaries of medicine built during the reign of Jayavarman II. Here, the line between hospital and temple is delicate, almost invisible. This is not a sterile place of metal and glass, but one of stone, ritual, and the hum of healing mantras. You walk through a low stone archway, the carvings overhead depicting Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, gazing down with a peaceful smile. That smile is everywhere in the statues, the inscriptions, the patient care. Inside, monks and herbalists work side by side. Their movements are slow, unhurried. A healer grinds dried ginger and holy basil into a poultice, while murmuring a prayer under her breath. A novice ladles warm rice porridge into clay bowls. Patients lie on woven mats, their faces serene, shaded by hanging cloths that sway gently in the breeze. You kneel beside an old man whose leg is bandaged in banana leaves and honey. He does not speak, but he gives you a small nod of thanks. His fingers are curled loosely around a lotus blossom, a gift from the monk who blessed his treatment earlier that morning. These hospitals, or aragyasalas, dot the empire. Jayavarman commissioned over 100, each supplied with medicines, water tanks, bath houses, and trained staff. You notice a small library shelf of palm leaf manuscripts, records of treatments, herbal recipes, chants for protection. Medicine here is not just physical, it is spiritual, atmospheric, and communal. Outside the main healing hall, you come upon a sacred pond. The water reflects the midday sky, and floating on its surface are petals of hibiscus and jasmine. A woman dips a gourd into the water, fills a clay jug, and offers it to her son. who is recovering from fever. The boy sips slowly, watching a dragonfly skim across the surface. A small shrine stands nearby. Offerings rest at its base beetle leaves, fruit, coins, and even a folded drawing made by a child. It is a sketch of a smiling monk with a walking stick. The image is crude, but filled with warmth. Healing is remembered, revered, even celebrated. But despite these hospitals' quiet beauty, some historians debate how accessible they truly were. Were they open to all, or primarily for pilgrims, monks, and those with temple affiliations? The inscriptions speak of compassion for all beings, yet some argue the scope was symbolic more than widespread. And yet, whether physical or aspirational, the legacy of care lingers. You turn a corner and find a long corridor where dried herbs hang in bunches from the rafters. Lemongrass, galangal, black pepper, beetle nut, all tied with twine and tagged with tiny palm leaf labels. A healer explains that each one has a season, a mood, a proper moment. No herb acts alone, she says softly. They listen to the body's song. You nod, watching her blend a tincture while another monk massages a man's back using a warm stone wrapped in cloth. The atmosphere is almost musical, chimes ringing faintly in the courtyard, the soft burble of a water basin, the low chant of monks in the background. Even the shadows seem gentle here. Later in the afternoon, a travelling herbalist arrives, carrying baskets strung across his shoulders. He is barefoot, sun-wrinkled, and smiling. The other healers gather to examine his wares: dried tamarind bark, powdered deer antler, and a rare root said to cool the body's fire. They haggle, joke, and trade stories. One monk tells of a woman who claimed her fever dreams were visited by Hanuman himself. Another insists that cloves can ease a broken heart, not through ingestion, but by simply placing them under one's pillow. You walk among them, observing this world where science and spirit intertwine so delicately. No beakers, no steel instruments, only earth, prayer, memory, and care. The sun begins to lower in the sky, casting long golden rays across the stone floor. A patient sits upright for the first time in days, receiving soft applause from the others. A monk brings over a bowl of steamed rice and banana blossom soup. The patient smiles, slowly, gratefully. You find a quiet corner of the garden where the leaves whisper and the wind carries the distant sound of temple bells. You sit beneath a frangipani tree and let the scent and serenity wrap around you like cloth. Here, healing is not an event. It is a process, a posture, a way of moving through the world with care and humility. In the Khmer Empire, to serve the body is to serve the spirit, and in doing so, the empire cares for itself, one whisper, one bowl, one smile at a time. You awaken beneath towering spires, their faces watching you from every direction. Carved into stone, serene and eternal, they gaze outward with half smiles and half secrets. This is the Bayon temple at the heart of Angkor, tomb-built by Jayavarman II, and unlike any other, you stand in its central courtyard, surrounded by towers upon towers, each one adorned with enormous faces carved in perfect symmetry. They stare to the north, south, east, and west. Silent sentinels, compassionate and unknowable. Morning light washes across them now, softening their edges, and you feel a curious sensation you are being watched, but not judged. The faces are known as the smiling faces of Angkor. No one knows for certain who they represent. Are they bodhisattvas, specifically Avalokiteshvara? the Lord of Compassion? Or are they Jayavarman VII himself, merged with divinity in eternal surveillance of his realm? Scholars lean one way, then another, then shrug gently. Even time, it seems, prefers ambiguity. You begin walking the maze of galleries that wind beneath the stone towers. At first, the carvings seem familiar: gods, demons, celestial dancers. But then, something shifts. You begin to notice scenes of daily life things rarely carved in temples. Men grilling fish, women giving birth, traders arguing over scales, roosters fighting, a chess game frozen in time. You pause at a panel where a woman carries 2 baskets suspended from a pole across her shoulders. Her child clings to her skirt while a monkey reaches toward the fish in her basket. The scene is so ordinary, and yet, here it is, engraved forever in stone. It makes you smile. The Bayon tells stories, not just of gods and kings, but of the people themselves. It is one of the only temples that invites the mundane into the sacred. You turn another corner and find a depiction of soldiers marching in lines, some riding horses, others on foot carrying spears and flags. One seems to be looking backward, as if unsure. A human moment, chiselled in eternity. And then there are the faces again. From every angle, they appear to change. Walk left, and the lips seem to widen. Step right, and the brows seem to furrow. You tilt your head and squint. Was that smile always there? The effect is unsettling but gentle, like a dream that shifts just when you begin to understand it. A monk walks past, his robe the colour of dried saffron. He carries a broom made from palm fibres and pauses to sweep a step that doesn't need sweeping. When you ask him who the faces are, he only replies, they smile for who needs them most. There is a peaceful irony to the Bayon, built in devotion yet full of humour, monumental yet intimate, a royal temple, yet crowded with scenes of butchers and bakers. It resists a single story. Still, debate hums beneath the serenity. Was the Bayon originally built as a Buddhist shrine that was later altered by Hindu kings? Were the additions harmonious or enforced? Some faces show signs of recarving, traces of iconoclasm softened by time. Even sacred stone is not immune to politics. You climb a steep staircase, your hands grazing the balustrade. The stone is warm now, alive with sunlight. At the top, you step onto a platform surrounded by the giant faces, so close now you could reach out and touch their cheeks. You sit cross-legged, letting the wind move through your clothes and hair. Below, the city stirs. You hear the distant creak of ox carts, the laughter of children, the clang of a pot struck by accident. Bayon rises above it all, not aloof, but connected. Its towers do not dominate, they witness. A small shrine sits here, tucked behind one of the central towers. Within it stands a simple statue of a seated Buddha. Before it, a bowl of marigolds, a stick of incense, long since burned out. No grand ceremony, just a place to sit, to remember, to be. You stay for a while. The sun arcs higher. The shadows move across the stone faces, changing their expressions once more. You think about how many people have passed through these halls, pilgrims, priests, children, scholars. You, all looked up, all wondered, all left a little quieter, and as you descend back into the halls, past the laughing wrestlers and solemn guardians, the Bayon does not explain itself. It doesn't need to. Some temples speak in silence, in stone, and in smiles. You awaken to a quiet court bathed in the golden haze of early morning. The palace walls are hushed, the halls unusually still, the laughter of children, the music of dancers, the gossip of noble courtiers, none reach your ears today. You're in Angkor in a time of uncertainty. The king is gone, and no clear heir has taken his place. The reign of Jayavarman II, full of vigour, temples, roads, and compassion, has come to an end. But unlike the carefully carved lines of his temples, his succession is blurred. You walk slowly through the corridors of stone and silence, where echoes of former glories linger in dust motes and sandalwood. The throne sits empty. Or rather, it sits occupied by many, each with their own claim. You pass a scribe hunched over a long scroll. His brush moves carefully, recording lineages, marriages, temple donations, trying to trace a clear thread through a growing tangle of dynastic branches. You peek over his shoulder. The ink curves elegantly, but the meaning is chaotic. Brothers, cousins, ministers, each name a contender, each connection more complicated than the last. Outside, the city continues. Merchants sell sticky rice and woven baskets in the market square. Fishermen mend their nets near the canal. But the atmosphere has changed. People speak in softer tones. The future feels uncertain, like a season delayed. You hear rumours swirling through the air. One noble woman whispers that the next king will restore the old Brahmin traditions. Another insists the Buddha has already spoken in someone's dream. A third shakes her head and murmurs that no one rules anymore. Not really. Even the temples reflect the change. You step into one half Buddhist, half Hindu, where a statue of Avalokiteshvara sits beside a lingam of Shiva. Incense burns beneath both. The priests seem comfortable with ambiguity, but you wonder if this harmony is real or merely practical. And still, the empire endures for now. The roads remain open. The berets still shine with captured rain. The forests hum with life. But the centre no longer holds with the strength it once had. At the southern gate of Angkor Thom, a group of officials debates beside their ox carts. Their voices are low, but you catch fragments. Too many temples. The gods have turned their backs. No one leads. One man sighs and shakes his head. We need another Jayavarman, not another ghost. The scholars of today look back and wonder the same. Was this moment, the failure to secure a successor, the first quiet crack in Angkor's foundations? Did it truly matter who followed? Or had the system grown too large, too intricate to steer? Some say this period marked a slow drift away from centralized power. Others argue the empire simply shifted, less visible, but still intact in the provinces. You continue walking through the royal garden, now overgrown in places. Banyan roots curl through old tiles. A lotus pond lies half-drained. A gardener rakes leaves into a quiet pile and burns them slowly, the smoke rising like a thin veil between this world and another. You find a child playing nearby, his toy made from an old broken roof tile carved into a tiny elephant. He runs it along the edge of the pond, laughing to himself. Even as dynasties falter and temples crumble, the human moments continue soft, unbothered by grand questions of succession. Later, you enter a small shrine hidden behind a flowering hedge. Inside, a single monk meditates in front of a flickering flame. No one has come to ask him who should wear the crown. He breathes, prays, and tends his incense. For him, the eternal is unchanged. You sit beside him for a moment, letting the quiet surround you. The sun climbs higher. The sounds of the city remain, but they seem farther away, like echoes through water. The empire is not falling, not yet, but it is shifting. Unmoored from a clear path forward, it drifts like a boat caught between tides. For now, it floats. The faces on the towers still smile, the rice still grows, but something, however faint, has changed. You awaken beneath a vaulted gallery where the light moves like water. High above, sunlight pours through narrow slits and dances across carved stone, illuminating an epic tale in bas relief. You are in Angkor Wat once more, walking its endless corridors, but this time you are here not to witness its construction, but to lose yourself in its stories. The walls speak. Not with words, but with images chiseled so delicately that even centuries later they retain their grace. You find yourself standing before one of the most famous panels, the churning of the sea of milk. Gods and demons pull at the body of a great serpent, wrapped around Mount Mandara, trying to extract the nectar of immortality. Their muscles bulge, their faces strain. The sea foams with celestial tension. The carving stretches the entire length of the corridor, over 150 feet. You walk slowly beside it, letting your fingertips brush the cool surface. There is a rhythm to it, like a hymn in stone. Asuras on one side, devas on the other, and the great turtle Khmer beneath the mountain, holding the world steady. The story is cosmic, yet somehow familiar. An eternal tug-of-war, harmony born from struggle. A priest nearby hums an old mantra under his breath. He notices you and offers a smile, then gestures to the wall. "Not just a story," he says softly. "It is our mirror." Angkor Wat was built as a Hindu temple, and its walls are filled with epics from the Ramayana and Mahabharata. But over time, it evolved. Buddhism gently folded itself into its chambers, softening the edges with new meanings. A statue of the Buddha sits now in a corner alcove once dedicated to Vishnu, draped in saffron cloth, surrounded by lotus offerings and melted wax from votive candles. You pass pilgrims who stop at certain figures, Arjuna, Hanuman, Ravana, and press their foreheads gently to the stone. They do not seem concerned with doctrine. They do not ask which god rules the temple. They simply trust that the stone remembers. Outside, the air is warmer. Monks sweep the terraces. Children chase chickens near the moat's edge. Tourists trickle in from distant lands, cameras in hand, voices hushed by the scale of it all. Yet Angkor Wat holds its silence. It was never meant to be rushed. You find a shaded spot beneath the colonnade and sit down, watching the light shift across the floor. The walls seem to pulse with memory battles won, rivers tamed, stories whispered into existence. Every carving is a prayer, every lintel a sigh. Even the cracks in the stone feel intentional, as if the temple ages with deliberate grace. Scholars still debate the deeper meaning of the temple's iconography. Was it truly meant to be a funerary monument for Jayavarman II? Was the churning scene a symbol of political balance, or a spiritual warning? Why was this one corridor dedicated solely to punishment in hell, while another shows celestial dancers in endless joy? Some argue that the whole temple is a coded map of time birth, death, and rebirth in architectural form. And yet, the stone offers no answers, only presence. You wander deeper into the temple, where the galleries grow darker. Here, carvings fade into shadow, their stories half swallowed by time. A monkey darts past you, its claws clicking softly on the stone. You follow it instinctively, and it leads you to a courtyard where a lone lotus blooms from a crack in the floor. No one else is here. The silence is total. You sit by the flower and breathe slowly, letting the moment settle. In this temple, time thickens. The past is not behind you. It surrounds you, chiseled, echoed, eternal. A breeze picks up, carrying the faint scent of frangipani and the distant call of a horn. Somewhere beyond the towers, someone is lighting incense. Somewhere, a story is being told. And here, within these ancient halls, the gods and demons continue their eternal dance, pulling at the serpent, waiting for the nectar to rise. You awaken on the water. The sun has just begun to rise over the Tonle Sap, Southeast Asia's great lake, and the horizon is a slow-moving sheet of gold. You sit in a low wooden boat, its hull gently creaking as it glides along glassy waters. Around you, entire villages float, not just boats, but homes, schools, temples, all balanced delicately upon the floodplain like lilies. This is the other heart of the Khmer Empire, not its stone monuments, but its liquid soul. The Tonle Sap breathes with the seasons. In the dry months, it shrinks to a modest lake. But in the monsoon, the Mekong reverses course, and the lake swells sixfold, flooding forests and nourishing the land with silty life. You drift along its surface like a whisper in a dream. Around you, daily life hums in soft, watery tones. A woman paddles by with baskets of green mangoes. Children splash beside stilted houses, their laughter rising like morning bird song. Fishermen cast nets in smooth arcs, the water briefly sparkling with silver as fish leap in protest. Even the dogs have learned to walk narrow planks with practiced grace. Your boatman, a quiet man with sun-darkened skin and a straw hat, hums an old tune as he poles along. His hands are calloused, his eyes kind. The water gives everything, he says simply. And sometimes it takes. The lake isn't just geography, it's a provider, a passageway, a calendar. Entire Khmer cities were once arranged to mirror this seasonal breath. Temples aligned with the flow of flood and retreat. Rice paddies time their cycles to the moods of the water. You pass one such paddy now, its surface gleaming, stalks barely above the surface. A farmer stands waist deep, adjusting a trap with practiced ease. You pull into a floating shrine, its steps made of bamboo. Inside, an old monk sits in meditation, swaying gently with the water. Before him, candles flicker beside bowls of rainwater and a small statue of Buddha. You kneel on the damp floor and listen as he murmurs a chant. It rolls over you like the lake's own tide constant, measured, alive. Later, as the day warms, you visit a floating market. Boats jostle gently, full of everything from roasted fish to woven hats to tiny clay figurines. A woman calls out prices in a melodic sing-song. Another offers you sticky rice wrapped in lotus leaves. You accept it with both hands, savouring its warmth and sweetness. Still, not all is idyllic. The lake's abundance is fragile. Even now, scholars debate how much the empire depended on it, and whether changes in the monsoon contributed to Angkor's later struggles. Was it overfished? Were the canals too rigid to adapt when the water changed? Some inscriptions suggest the royal planners tried to control the lake as they had controlled the land, but water has its own will. You drift past a submerged forest mangrove roots dipping into the water like fingers, fish weaving between them in slow, lazy spirals. Birds call overhead, their cries sharp against the muffled world below. A child waves to you from the steps of her floating home, a duck waddling behind her like a sleepy guardian. At the village edge, you visit a small school on stilts. Inside, children recite verses in unison, their voices rising and falling like gentle waves. On one wall, someone has drawn a map of the Khmer Empire encircle its temples, its rivers, its vast reach. It's smudged and fading, but still proudly displayed. The schoolteacher smiles at you and points to the map. They forget sometimes, she says, that we were a water people too, not just stone. Her voice carries both pride and warning. As the sun dips lower, your boatman begins to pull back toward shore. The water glows amber. Egrets stand frozen like statues. The village prepares for night lamps lit, nets folded, prayers whispered into water jars. You watch it all and think here, far from the carved towers and golden thrones, is another kind of empire, built not of sandstone, but of rhythm, not ruled by kings, but by current. It does not rise, it floats. And even as time erodes temples and topples dynasties, the Tonle Sap remains gently expanding and receding, like breath, like memory. You awaken to a sky layered in clouds, neither stormy nor clear, but quietly uncertain. The air feels heavier, tinged with wood smoke and a tension you cannot name. You're in the Khmer countryside now, far from the shimmering barrets and grand stone gates. The roads are rougher, the temples smaller, and the voices of the empire are beginning to speak in different tones. You pass through a village where the shrine is no longer dedicated to Vishnu or Avalokiteshvara, but to a local spirit one carved not in stone, but wood, its face softened by touch and incense smoke. Chickens dart between houses. A woman greets you politely but does not meet your eyes. The fields are planted, but the canals nearby run dry, their beds cracked and dusty in the morning light. This is a different Khmer empire than the one you remember, a little quieter, a little fractured. It is the 14th century now, and while the temples still stand, their central power no longer shines as it once did. Kings come and go, but their names are no longer echoed in inscriptions or carved into grand lintels. The stoneworkers have fewer commissions. These scribes write more of tribute and negotiation than of triumph. Regional lords, mandarins, monks, and minor kings are beginning to assert themselves. You arrive at a provincial monastery, its walls humble, its garden well tended. A monk welcomes you with a smile, offering you tea steeped with lemongrass and dried ginger. You sit with him in the shade of a jackfruit tree. Once, we sent rice and prayers to Angkor, he says. Now we keep both here. You hear no bitterness in his tone, only fact, the sense that the centre has faded, not fallen, just dispersed, and still. Life continues. The rice is harvested. The water buffalo plods steadily through the paddies. Families gather for evening meals of fermented fish and sour soup. But there is something missing, some unifying thread that once stitched all corners of the empire together like silk. Scholars later trace the pattern with care. They speak of increasing threats from neighbouring kingdoms, particularly from the Ayutthaya kingdom to the west. They note a gradual weakening of royal authority, a reduction in inscriptions, a decentralization of religious influence. Theravada Buddhism is spreading now, not through conquest, but through quiet acceptance. A softer, more personal faith replacing the grand cosmology of previous centuries. You visit a newly rebuilt shrine where the Buddha sits simply, cross-legged and smiling. Gone are the towering lintels and the mandalas carved in stone. Instead, the teachings are spoken, memorized, passed from teacher to student. This sacred has grown quieter, closer. A child offers you a folded lotus blossom. Her hands are dusty, her face smudged with charcoal from helping in the kitchen. She grins anyway. No empire needed for joy, yet even joy cannot erase uncertainty. You pass a village where two elders argue gently about taxes owed to distant nobles. Neither knows who collects them anymore. The empire is still there, one says, just further away. The other shrugs. Maybe it's here now, just smaller. You stop for the night in a rest house once built for royal envoys. Its roof is patched with woven palm. The walls are etched with graffiti names, drawings, even a poem scratched in old Khmer about a lonely traveller and a pot of sour stew. You smile. Even in decline, the echoes of life persist. Outside, the night settles. Crickets sing in the underbrush. The stars are sharp in the open sky, unspoiled by city glow. You wonder, is this decline or is it simply change? Not everything has vanished. The temples still stand, though some are cracked and others overgrown. The berets still glisten in the morning light. The people still honour their gods, their ancestors, and their stories. But something has shifted. The empire is no longer a lion pacing confidently. It is a deer, alert and quiet, stepping carefully into tomorrow. And even now, there is no panic, only adjustment. The Khmer people remain, tending to their fields, their prayers, and their children. Not with grandeur, but with grace. You awaken to a quiet landscape where water once flowed, but now sits still shallow, murky and hesitant. The barry near you, once a gleaming reservoir of divine order, is now patchy with reeds and algae. Cracks etch the earthen embankments like wrinkles. You sit beside it, feeling the sun rise slowly behind you, warm but not comforting. Something has changed. All around. You sense it. The water no longer moves the way it used to. You walk a familiar canal path, its stone lining overgrown with grass. Farmers work nearby, but their eyes drift more often toward the sky than the soil. The monsoon was late this year, and last year, and the year before that. Even the elders speak in hushed voices of dry spells and strange rains. The mighty waterworks, the lifeblood of Angkor, are faltering. What once was a symphony of engineered flow has grown out of tune. Reservoirs overflow at the wrong times. Canals flood fields instead of feeding them. Silt chokes the waterways. The seasons grow unpredictable, and the rice harvests, once abundant, now strain to fill even half the granaries. You pass a group of villagers dredging a clogged canal. Their shovels clink against stone and buried pottery shards. One boy finds a broken statue head and lifts it proudly, though no one knows whether it's Vishnu or Buddha. The river has no preference anymore. Even the temples reflect the imbalance. Listen spreads unchecked across their facades. Carvings blur in the erosion. Vines slip into the cracks, widening them with each passing season. Some priests whisper that the gods are retreating. Others claim they're still listening, but only to those who speak in a different voice. Theravada Buddhism is now the language of the people. It is quieter, more internal. Monks teach from memory and live with the villagers. The grand ceremonies of the Devaraja cult, the god-king rituals have faded. The incense still burns, but it drifts into smaller spaces. You step into a monastery built beside a dried pond. Its walls are made of woven bamboo, not stone. Inside, a novice monk tends to a pot of rice porridge while another sweeps the floor with rhythmic patience. The abbot greets you with a bow and offers a cushion. He speaks of impermanence not as a warning, but as a truth. Even great cities, he says, must let go. Scholars still discuss what truly unravelled the Khmer Empire. Was it war with Ayutthaya, a spiritual shift that drew power away from the central court, or was it climate, those stubborn monsoons, the failing canals, the water that refused to come when asked? Perhaps it was all of them, not in a sudden collapse, but in a slow, graceful dimming. You walk now through Angkor Thom. The roads are still there, but fewer feet travel them. Vendors sell fewer wares. A beret has become a lotus pond, its surface dotted with pink blossoms and sleeping frogs. At the gates of the Bayon, moss blankets the smiling faces. They do not look troubled, only watchful. You pass a group of children playing in the dust, their game a mix of tag and storytelling. One girl insists she saw a naga, a seven-headed serpent slithering into the moat. The others laugh and dare her to chase it. The temples may be quieter, but the myths are still awake. Nearby, an old woman tends to a shrine. She cleans it with water fetched from a shallow well and lays down a handful of wildflowers. When you ask her who the shrine is for, she shrugs gently. The old gods, the new ones, all of them, I think. You sit beside her, listening to the rustling trees. The jungle presses closer now, reclaiming its space, not aggressively, but gently, like a mother picking up the toys of a child grown older. And still, the stone holds its stories. The empire hasn't ended, it has simply softened. It recedes like the water in a dry season. Not gone, just waiting. Somewhere, deep beneath the soil and vines, the rhythms remain, and you, small and quiet in this grand decline, feel something unexpected. Peace. You awaken to the sound of wind moving through trees tall, ancient, and no longer trimmed by royal hands. The jungle has returned, not in conquest, but in quiet persistence. You're standing at the edge of a once grand temple complex now nearly swallowed by green. The roots wrap around columns. The leaves rustle over collapsed walls, and through it all, a strange stillness lingers. The Khmer Empire has dimmed, not with a bang, but with a whisper. You make your way along a mossy path, stepping over fallen stones etched with forgotten script. The air is heavy with the scent of wet bark and flower rot. It's not unpleasant, just old, thick with memory. The silence is not empty. It's full of things not said. A doorway leads you into a half-collapsed hall. Here, columns lean drunkenly, and the ceiling is partially caved in. You step cautiously, but find that the floor is firm beneath you. A statue of Vishnu lies on its side, face buried in moss. Nearby, a stupa has cracked down the middle. A sapling grows straight through the fissure. You hear a low voice chanting, not loud, not urgent, just a simple phrase repeated with the steadiness of breath. You follow it and find a single monk, cloaked in faded saffron robes, sweeping a courtyard that no longer sees much foot traffic. He pauses when he sees you, offers a smile, and continues his task. He is not alone. A handful of monks still live here. They tend the remaining shrines, feed the birds, boil rice, chant at dusk and dawn. You join them for their morning meal, sticky rice, fermented greens, and a quiet blessing. They talk little, but their eyes are kind. They do not speak of loss. They speak only of presence. You sit with the abbot, an old man with trembling hands and a soft voice. The kings are gone, he says, but the Dhamma stays. He gestures around at the broken walls, the tree roots, the lotus pond overtaken by frogs. This is still a temple. Angkor is not abandoned. Not truly. Farmers from nearby villages still come to leave offerings. Tourists, though few, arrive in sandals and hats, gazing up in awe. And the monks, those last keepers of flame, keep the heart of the place pulsing, even if faintly. You walk along what used to be the royal causeway. Vines dangle from the trees above. Insects buzz in the heat. Every so often a rusted bell sways from a crooked frame, ringing only when the wind remembers to push it. Some scholars claim the jungle's return was symbolic, a final shrug from nature reclaiming what was once hers. Others argue it was inevitable. Without centralized funding, without kings and artisans, the temples couldn't hold back time. Others still say it never really ended at all. The Khmer spirit simply moved to the villages, to the Theravada monasteries, to the rice fields and market songs. You sit on a half-toppled step beneath the gaze of a once divine guardian. Its eyes are chipped, its lips nearly gone. But still, you feel seen. A group of children runs past, barefoot and laughing, chasing each other with palm leaves tied into little birds. One pauses to peer into a carved alcove and whispers something before running to catch the others. You don't hear what he says. Maybe it was a prayer. Maybe it was just a game. In the late afternoon, a light rain begins to fall. The droplets patter softly on leaves and stone. You take shelter beneath a crumbling gallery and watch the mist roll in across the landscape. From this height, you can see what remains of Angkor towers poking above the canopy, outlines of once orderly roads, moats now blurred into marshes, a city remembered more by trees than men, and yet it isn't sad, it's simply true. Like breath fading into stillness. As evening comes, the monks light oil lamps in the shrine. Their glow reflects off rain-slicked stone, casting golden flickers onto faces long frozen. You sit among them, quiet, listening to chants that echo without urgency. You think of all that came before, the roads, the berets, the temples, the kings who thought they would live forever in stone. You think of the farmers who outlived them, and the monks who remained when the crowns fell silent, and you realize something gentle but certain empires may fall. But stillness endures. You awaken at dawn, surrounded by soft golden mist that clings to the treetops and temple spires. The jungle is hushed, not silent but reverent. The ruins of Angkor stretch out before you, like a memory half-remembered, scattered with vines and early light, and in this moment, with the breeze gently rustling the leaves and the stones still damp with morning dew, the past feels closer than ever. You stand once again at Angkor Wat. The towers rise like lotus buds, still strong, still proud. Yet this is not the bustling Angkor of empire. It is quieter now, a place of visitors and pilgrims, of monks in saffron robes and travellers tracing their fingers along the carvings in awe. The city is no longer the centre of a kingdom, but it has become something else, an echo that sings through time. A group of monks sweeps the courtyard, their brooms making soft music on the flagstones. Tourists, hushed by the atmosphere, step lightly between galleries. You notice how they all pause before the bas-reliefs, gaze up at the towers, and tilt their heads at the smiling faces of the Bayon still inscrutable. still gently watching, and you walk slowly, through halls you've passed before, only now they are not new, nor abandoned, they are timeless. A boy selling incense at the entrance nods to you. A local guide gestures to the carvings with quiet pride. This, he whispers, is our heart. You visit a small shrine nestled beneath a Bodhi tree. A candle flickers. A woman kneels, her palms pressed together. She wears no crown, speaks no Sanskrit, but in her prayer is the same devotion that once built temples, dug reservoirs, planted rice by moonlight. Nearby, a pond reflects the ruins. A frog leaps, sending ripples across the surface. You smile. Even now, Angkor lives not as a seat of power, but as a place of stillness, beauty, and slow remembrance. Scholars still debate what Angkor truly was. Was it the most advanced city of its time, a theocratic kingdom ruled by divine kings, a fragile marvel too bound to water and ritual to survive change? The answers shift like light on the carvings. But the presence, the feeling of Angkor does not. You sit on a low step as the sun climbs higher. Around you, saffron robes flutter, cameras click softly, a child giggles, a bird calls from the trees overhead. In this place, centuries fold gently into one another. The past is not buried here. It is visible, breathing, offered like lotus petals at a shrine. As the light warms the stone, you rest your hand on a carving of a Devata, her smile worn by time. You don't need her name. You understand her now. She has seen kings rise and vanish. She has seen jungle and drought, monks and tourists. She has stood here while the world turned, and still she smiles. You walk once more beneath the central tower, past the galleries and gardens, past the gates where once guards stood in armour. Now only butterflies flit there, and in that quiet you realise this story does not end. The Khmer Empire fell, but its wonder, its beauty, its grace, its golden silence remains. It endures in the faces of its towers, in the laughter of children who don't know their playground is history, in the rice fields still watered by ancient canals, and in you, sleepy listener, who have drifted beside it for a while. Now, my dear listener, you've travelled far through centuries of temples and jungle paths, through the rise of kings and the slow, gentle fall of empire. You've walked where monks sweep the dust of memory, where stone smiles hide questions no scholar can answer, where water once mirrored the sky and made cities bloom from rice and ritual. And now, as your breath softens and your eyelids grow heavy, know this, you carry it all with you. The hush of dawn over a flooded paddy, the chant of a monk echoing off moss-covered walls, the smile of a goddess carved in sandstone who has never stopped watching. Let them stay with you as you drift slowly, gently into sleep. There is no need to remember the dates or names. No need to hold on to the sequence of kings or the curve of dynasties. What matters is the stillness you found there, the quiet reverence that wrapped itself around each moment like a silk sash in temple shade. Angkor was never just a place. It was a rhythm, a breath, a light that flickered and dimmed but never truly went out. And now, as your breath begins to match that ancient rhythm, you can let it carry you deeper, softer, still. The empire is at peace, and so are you.